Hi, Jonathan. How are
I
you?
made it.
Yay, good job. Yay, hi, Amanda. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to
I'm
see
gonna
you too.
um
Welcome.
I'm gonna mute myself real quick while I set up the other camera I can play the cello so I'm not making noise. But talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, okay, cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, Amanda, I wanted to say I got the Learn Fast Better Molly Gebrian book you recommended.
Yeah. Did you start reading it?
I'm about to, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's really insightful. It's really good.
Nice.
Yeah, all of you are sources of such great tips. Amanda actually recommended a couple of pieces to me. Hi, Judy and Chad. Good to see
Mhm.
you.
Hey y'all.
So yeah, it's great. So I know, Chad, it's so nice you can join us too. I know it's been a bit of a battle to find off work days for you. So
You nailed it this month.
hooray! Good. And actually, I think that you and Judy have very cleverly, hi Kimberly, be like coordinated yourselves. So I think that you both have 1 week on and 1 week off at the same time. Thank you for doing.
It
Oh,
only,
that.
it
this
only
is
lasts for
great.
a while. It'll change again.
Yeah. Well, if you could just stay like this forever, that would be perfect. So I know that Carla and Caroline can't join us today. So let's just jump on in. So hopefully you have in front of you the practice companion, which is what we're going to be looking at today. So if you haven't got that, I recommend grabbing it because we're just going to go through. The foundational training is basically a chance to go through the practice companion and just kind of show you its content, get you a bit more familiar with it so you can use it more comfortably throughout the month, and just understand what each section is about. So, of course, this month is shifting, and shifting is a very important thing to do. It's basically how we get between A and B, how we move around the fingerboard. So I thought it would be good to kind of look at the foundations of how we shift in terms of the kind of left hand form we need, how to move most efficiently around the fingerboard. So a lot of the shifts that we're looking at, especially in the technique section, are really to do with just that foundational movement. What should it be? What are we looking for? And then further on, we'll be looking at some nuances in shifting, like these slight arc motions that come from our forearm. And we will also be looking at some artistic choices around shifting, but with a focus primarily on this kind of just really nailing the foundations of getting from A to B. So I'm currently looking, and hi Janet, I see you joining us, which is great. So I'm currently looking at page 5, which is the opening reflection from this month's practice companion, and I called it Getting from A to B. And this gives us an overview of what we're going to be doing. In the second paragraph, it talks about in the warm up, we're going to be doing these playful glides. Essentially, we're taking a single pitch and we're going to approach that pitch from below the note and from above the note. And this is generally a great way of getting more familiar with the fingerboard geography and also thinking outside the box in terms of not just doing the same shift again and again. So if you have a tricky shift in a piece that you're working on at the moment, rather than always doing it in its official context, like say you were going D string from an E first finger to an A in fourth position, well, rather than only doing E to A, why not also try B above the A to A, or G to A, or D to A? You could try lots of different ways of getting there, and just freeing ourselves up like that, rather than just trying to nail the one shift that's on the page, can actually be really, really great. Not only again for that general familiarization with the fingerboard, but also just feeling freer with what we're doing and not being too tied to I have to nail this one thing in this piece in this bar. So that's the warm up, which we'll look at in a moment a bit more. And then in the next paragraph on page 5, this is the third paragraph down, it talks in bold, I've written how to move most efficiently. And that's really at the heart of this foundational shifting motion. So again, that's the technique exercise. It's not fancy, it's just how to move. And I really want us to feel comfortable together that we kind of have a good approach to that. there may be some slight variations that you feel about the way you want to do it, and please feel free to raise that if that's the case. But I believe that this way introduced here is just extremely efficient and economical, so we'll look at that. We'll also, in stretch zone A, look at thumb position, so moving into thumb position, which is of course something that we all struggle with, especially as we go from later intermediate into advanced playing. And then the piece, the contextual piece repertoire for shifts this month is our Swan, which is beautiful, of course, and we will look at how these different kinds of shifts can be analysed in terms of motions that we're making, but also in terms of how we want them to sound expressively. So whereabouts the slide might happen, which finger we're shifting on, things like that. So let's jump in, and I'm going to go forward now to page 10, because page 10 is the general tips for the companion. And this page, roughly page 10, every companion, general tips, is always at the heart of guidelines for each section. And I've divided it up, I always divide it up now into the sections. So the first category is general tips for shifting and warm-ups, and those tips are particularly relevant to the warm-ups in the companion. And then the next category is tips for the technique exercises. And then you can see in the second column going down, it says tips for stretch zone A, tips for stretch zone B, and then last but not least, some common shifting pitfalls, like not releasing the thumb just before the shift, or not leading from the shoulder and the arm, or not allowing your torso and head to have a little freedom in the motion. Any questions that have come up so far, or shall we march on? Okay, great. Yes, feel free to unmute yourself or raise a hand, whatever you like, if something comes up that you're like, what does she mean? I don't really get this. Or okay, so this is page 11. This is the warm-up section. And I've called it a single continuum, with this idea of, well, it kind of feeds in a little bit to the idea of a black hole, right? The fingerboard is a little bit of a black hole, as we, how on earth are we going to find ourselves in it and find where every pitch needs to go? But there's also a good side of this idea of just a single black stretch or a single continuum, which is that we have fluidity with it. So we kind of have to embrace this sense of one unbroken line that we want to create here with our left arms. And this works into the idea of the warm-ups. So it tells us in the playful approaches to the arrival note, notice playful, we like playful. So the first number one, it says first establish the arrival target note. Play it with a free, confident sound. I'm going to do this, feel free to join as we go. So you can see in the first box, you've got 3 boxes. First box, it says arrival note, and there's an A. So I'm going to play this, obviously not as an open A, but as a first finger on the D string. And I'm going to play it quite sort of mezzo forte, let's say, quite close to the bridge. Maybe I'm going to just play with that for a bit, get free, maybe a bit of vibrato. Maybe I'm going to try and feel even better with it and try it with a different finger. So let's just go through some different fingers on that A. So our goal is to feel free, to feel comfortable, just doing what it takes to be like, yeah, I like that note, that feels good. One quick word about the D string. It's in the middle of our cello, and it's in a point where it's very easy to cave in with your body. So do be careful to lift the chest when you play on the D string. It really changes the sound. Okay, once we have established that note, and it could be, of course, any arrival note, I've just randomly chosen these 3 notes here, we then can start thinking about departure notes. So in other words, the note that we're going to move from to our arrival note. And in the first box of the 4 boxes underneath the A, you've got departure note G. So I'm gonna stick with my first finger for now. This is also what I do in the play along videos. And I'm just gonna move from G to A. I'm gonna do it in one bow. So I'm not gonna do this, because if I do that, I'm creating an extra hurdle to get over. It's much, much better to do it in one bow, because then you can really focus on the left hand rather than the bow change, right, like this. Keeping my chest up, let me do that again. And moving 1 to 1. And then I would move on to trying it with some of the other notes. Again, it can be any other note. I've given 4 random notes to move from the A to the A from. We've got the C, and D, a D, and an E. So I'm going to just try some of these. Feel free to try some too. I'm going to start with the E to the A, 1 to 1. As I do this, I'm going to try to really feel that sense of the familiarity of the arrival note that I just established. There it is. So I'm going to move from E, and then I'm going to find that same sensation that I had. If you feel like you've lost the sensation, come back to it and try it again. So come back, re-establish that arrival note. Where does it feel good? And then find another departure pitch. And of course, so far we haven't talked about form and we haven't talked about methods of sliding. So this is a little bit free form at the moment, and it might be a section that you also choose to come back to, having worked through some of the technique sections or later sections, because then you have more guidelines. But we're trying to kind of keep it a bit free at this point. Yeah, so you can work through, obviously, the other given arrival notes and departure notes, or you could just try your own. Any questions about this section? Yes, Kimberly.
You're probably going to cover this, but I just want to throw this out there.
Yeah.
When I looked at your example and saw the C and the D to the A,
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh, C on the A string to the. So will you be talking about crossing strings with shifts?
We will, but that's more something that's covered in the Swan repertoire.
Okay. Okay.
And so yes, and so actually in the play sessions, what we do is look at a couple of the exercises in depth together, and we will certainly be. I think the Swan will be one of those, just to bring it into repertoire context. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, so the idea with these is that you would only be sliding on the same string, which is so. Thank you for highlighting that. So yeah. You could do it on a different string, but it would be a bit different, and would start to run into the a little bit more which finger, old or new, are you sliding with, and when. So at the bottom of the page, on page 11, it does say in the sort of brownie colour. I'm not sure the official terminology for that colour, but hi Linda, good to see you. It says, don't forget to make a written note of your observations. And I say this to myself as much as I say it to encourage you to do it, because whenever I do take a note, I feel like I learned so much more, and it's much easier for me to jump back into the stream of wherever I was in my last practice if I've just, it could be just 2 words, but something to hold on to there. Linda, would you mind just muting yourself for me? Thank you very much. And then of course, feel free to unmute yourself as we go along. Let's go on to page 13, and this is the technique exercise. So technique exercise is, as I mentioned, kind of really I think the most important thing in this companion, and the actual exercise is given on page 14 with guidelines in the purple box. So those guidelines, really, really important on page 14. On page 13, we're just talking about what we're going to do, which is focusing on economy of motion, right? We're trying to get rid of unwanted excess up and down motions in the shoulder, in the elbow. We're trying to move in as efficient a way from A to B as possible, reducing excess motion, maximizing efficiency as directly as possible from A to B. So I think this is a little bit different to how we often think about shifts, which is like, well, I'm making an arch motion and it's rainbow and it's lovely, and which is great, but those motions are very, very, very small. And I think quite often we, without realizing it as we're working on it, exaggerate them. I think there's something really great to be said for starting with a very direct, almost like a line type motion. So again, that's the foundation of what we're going to be looking at. Also in that box on page 13, it talks about the inchworm motion. That's something else that we'll look at. So let's have a look at this foundational idea of economy of motion. So I'm looking at page 14 here. And we could just quickly read through those guidelines in the box. So I say rounded fingers. So as we practice these, we really want to have our fingers be, playing on the fingertips as much as possible versus breaking the joint like that, right? We're going to try to have as much as possible rounded fingers. Now, my fingers break the joint quite a bit like this, and it's okay for that to happen. I think that's true for many of us. But when we want to play fast, it's really, really helpful to be able to play on the fingertips. So if you're somebody that does this all the time, then know that about yourself and try to work some of your practice to be very centered around playing on the fingertips. That will help. It then says one of the most important guidelines I think in the companion, which is fingers move in a straight line above the same string. So say we were doing that first preparatory exercise, moving from 4 on, this is on the D string, so we've got fourth finger on a G, and then to an A. What we don't want to do with first finger, what we don't want to do is have our fingers doing something like this, right? We don't want to have them curled. We don't want to have them over here either. We want to have them directly over the D string or whichever string you're playing, even though they're not down, they should be. So that's one thing that will, I think, really help to pay attention to as you are practicing this shifting exercise. Are my fingers over the string? And it's something that we don't tend to think about, but really makes a difference. I think one of the main ways it makes a difference is it tends to keep our fingers, our whole arm, a little bit more like this rather than like this. See how my shoulder's further back? And if we're like this, with the fingers over the fingerboard, we're just ready to play. We're ready to play, and we're training our arm to be in that correct position all the time. So again, this guideline of fingers move in a straight line above the same string, I think is something that's definitely helped me a lot. Also, as I was putting the companion together, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this more. This is so helpful. So I hope that helps you too. The next point, also really important, always shift with the finger that's about to play. Now, of course, that's not necessarily true at all for repertoire context, but we're trying to find a motion that's as direct as possible. So for these exercises, do try to always shift with the finger that's about to play. So when I'm doing the preparatory exercise, moving from 4 to 1, I should be shifting on 1, right? I want to be shifting on 1 rather than kind of partly on 4 and then arriving on 1. I should be shifting the whole time on 1. And that's also when I'm going to be doing, in this case, 4 to 1, I'm going to be doing a little inchworm motion. There's something in the play-along videos about this, but very briefly, the inchworm motion is basically the idea of compression and expansion. So compression meaning the hand comes closer together, and we lift between the 4 and the 1, we lift the non-playing fingers so that the first finger pushes the fourth finger out of the way. So I'm going 4, lift 2 and 3, let the first finger come up, push the fourth finger out of the way, and slide on the first finger. Again, 4, lift the 2 and the 3, let the first finger compress the hand, come up to the fourth finger, push the fourth finger away, and slide on the first finger. You can also do it going backwards, 1 to 4. So 1, 2 and 3 are lifted, bringing my fourth finger really close to the first finger, like this, like really doing that, and then pushing it out of the way. So then I would slide, I'd push the first finger away and slide on the fourth. Going up, 4, lift the 2 and the 3, first finger pushes the fourth out of the way, and I slide on the 1. Going back, 1, 4 pushes the first finger away, and I slide on the 4. So that's in a nutshell this inchworm motion, which we can look at more in the future. But let's get started and have a look at this the actual technique exercise. So again, we need to think about fingers above the string that we're playing on, and we need to think about shifting with the finger that we're about to play. So the first shifting exercise is E to A. I'm shifting on 1. Then I'm going to shift on 2. Then I'm shifting back on 1, because that's the next finger that's about to play. So what I'm not doing is shifting on 1 and then putting down my second finger. I'm shifting on 2, this is when I go to the B flat. Then I shift back with 1. Fingers above the playing string, shifting with 3. Shifting with 1. Shifting with 4. This is much harder than you think. Shifting with 1. And as you can hear, I'm really showing the slides. So do show the slides. Don't feel like you have to, that's not very tasteful, I can't do that. Yes, show the slides. Any questions about this so far? Just want to make sure I'm kind of making sense. Good, okay, great. So then, next one would be the same idea, but starting on second finger. So you're going 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, and then the next one would be 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't do it that fast, of course. I'm just trying to get through it. Next one, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4. But all of these should be practiced slowed to a bow, again, so that we can focus on the shift. Don't have to worry about bow changes. And making sure that the fingers are above the same string and that you are always shifting with the finger that's about to play. Jonathan, yes.
Hi. So a while back, you and I had a lesson where you mentioned, when my fourth finger is down, that the fingers behind it should also be down. Like, just say in a normal first position. And that when I let my fourth finger up, the third finger should still be down, that kind of thing. My question as that relates to shifts is, let's say you're playing from the G, fourth finger to fourth finger as on the final line.
Yep.
Do you keep the other fingers behind the fourth finger down while you shift?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, but lightly so. So you don't need to be pushing down as if you were actually stopping a note. So the only finger in those last 2 bars of the page 14 that's pushing down would be the fourth finger. But the fingers are still down. They're just happily enjoying the fact that the fourth finger is pushing it down, and they're just kind of there along for the ride. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Great, good question. Any other questions about this one? So this one again is, I think, really the heart of this one. I think it's worth doing it very, very slowly. I would practice it like this. I'm going to do the second line. This is starting with the second finger on the F. So let's do this one slowly together, just to see how it feels if you fancy joining. So we're going to go 2, shift on 1, shift on 2, shift on 2. Check in with the fingers being aligned above the same string. Shift on 3. Shift on 2. Shift on 4. Yeah, it's very easy to shift on the old finger when you coming back. So there's this expression of shifting on the old finger or the new finger. So I think it probably makes quite a lot of sense already. But just if we looked at the very first two notes of hi Janet of that line, the F to the A, it would be, if we were shifting on the old finger, it would be shifting on the 2 because that's the departure note, right? And then at the very end, I would kind of switch to the first finger, the new finger. And then on the way down, I would shift with 1. And then at the last minute, kind of snap the second finger in. But what we're doing is shifting on the new finger, the finger that we're about to play. So we're shifting on the first finger, the new finger, and then 2. You can see how when we do that, it creates an unbroken slide from A to B. And it's much easier to have this sense of a single line in our arm, the way that we're kind of navigating the fingerboard. Okay, great. So let's keep going to make sure that the rest of the companion is kind of somewhat familiar too. And this is going on to stretch zone A on page 16. And this is shifting from 4th position to thumb position. So we're in the technique exercise, we got up to the 4th position. And now we're going to start there and go into thumb position. In the purple boxes, you've got more guidelines. Those are always in the purple boxes. Some of them are things that we've already talked about. They're labelled as reminders. And then there's a couple that say new. And those are the ones that are specific to thumb position. So you can see in the second box, it says new. Thumb should be placed firmly down over 2 strings before you shift. Okay. So actually, before we even get there, in the first 2 lines of music are basically going to just before we get to thumb position. So let's look at those first. So we start, again, same idea, fingers need to be over the string that we're playing. We're going to shift with the finger that's about to play. So we're going in the first bar from an E to an A, and we want to shift with finger 3. Here we go. Put the 3 down, shift. Lift till the first, and slide. So we slide on the way up on 3, and on the way down on 1. Just take a moment to observe how efficient this is, how we're not creating any extra motions for the hand. It's very direct. 3, 1. And then we go into probably one of the most uncomfortable positions for ourselves, which is 6th position. And for this, you need to have a clear idea of where you want your thumb to be. I like to have my thumb on the side of the cello. Bigger hands often do well with it behind the neck. But when I play a B up here, I like to have my thumb here. Here it feels like I'm compromising my hand angle to the fingerboard too much. So I have it here instead of here. But if you have a bigger hand, maybe you can make that work. And that's great. If you don't have to do that, that's fine too. So let's have a look at the E to B into 6th position. Sorry. Shift on the 3. Shift on the 1. And the thumb is a continuation of the motion, right? The left thumb should be a continuation of the arm movement. So I'm just going to try and turn to the side to give you a sense of what my thumb is doing when I go from the E to the B. Let's get up there, but anyway, let's have a look. So 1. Yeah, you can't really see. Okay, let's try this way. Okay, so. Jonathan, yes.
Quick question about that actually, because I couldn't see your thumb moving until I saw it in the
Yeah.
position. So I guess I'm curious, in what sequence are you moving the thumb before you move the rest of the hand, or vice versa?
I
Is
think
it following or leading?
I would say it's all at the same time for this one. That's a really good question though, because a lot of the time the thumb does lead. But in this case, the thumb is moving with the hand. Generally, it finds its spot just before I finish my slide, though. So they kind of leave together, but the thumb gets to its destination sooner because it's got less distance to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have actual thumb position. So like, we've gone from in the technique, and then we went, and then we're going to go into thumb position. So this is the third line down on page 16, and it says for thumb to come up, down across 2 strings. So on the A string, this is especially important so that we don't tightrope walk and fall off, which really happens. So don't do that. Put the thumb down, up and across 2 strings, and then you're going to slide on the thumb, right? So I'm sliding on the way up on the thumb and on the way down on the first finger. And if this is something that is for you a stretch that perhaps you haven't done that much of, then really take your time to, and even if you are really familiar with it, it's good to do, take your time to really feel that arrival note like we were doing in the warm-ups, and maybe play the harmonics, just kind of let everything settle. So you're like, okay, that's what that feels like. Make sure the chest is out. That would be a great exercise too. And you know, the lovely thing about this work is that it's very focused, it's very deliberate. You don't need to do more than, you know, if you really want to improve it, you don't need to do more than 10 minutes a day like this, and you know, you'll start feeling the results pretty soon in terms of this, having the fingers over the same string, being that the form being better in your hand, in your arm, and also just feeling more comfortable with shifts. So the last 2 lines here take us even further. So we like to, you know, think of thumb position as being here with the thumb on the D and the A harmonics, but there's kind of like a lot of other space up here that we have to navigate. So we start to do that in the next exercise, and this last exercise shifts to second finger, and then the last line shifts from the 4th position to 3rd finger. So we're basically shifting up to the other 2 fingers besides first that we normally use in thumb position. Yes, Judy.
Before you go further, when you go from the A thumb back to the E, so
Yeah.
do you put your one up when you're gonna go, do you put, like, when you're up here to thumb, put your one up like that and then take it back?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful not to. Obviously, you don't want to play the B, right? So it's it's a kind of like little subtle thing where the first finger has to take over just a smidgen after you start moving with the thumb. If you were to really.
I just wanted to make certain I was gonna do it right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Chad, I saw you writing something, but I didn't see what it was. Would you like to share that or not? It's like, see, that was an aside to somebody in the group. What's she talking about?
No, just making me relearn treble clef here. I'm sitting going, every good boy does fine. So yeah, I'm good.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Excellent. Love it.
Back to the basics here.
No, that's where it's at. Hey, that's what this whole thing is about, right? Like, that's what we all need. That's what I find most helpful for me. Good. Okay, yeah, if anybody wants a recommendation of a good, what's called note speller, for just kind of familiarizing yourself with the note names and different. Well, it's really the one I'm thinking of was really bass and treble clef, but let me know and I'll send that to you. Okay, so last line, Jonathan, is that a yes please or a question?
Question, but maybe you're about to talk about this. It's just in the purple box. I have a
Yes.
question. The last.
Yes.
I always aim for the thumb down the third octave. I'm a little confused by that.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, the last point in the purple boxes on page 16, it's a new idea specific to thumb position, and it says always aim for thumb to go down at an octave to the third finger on the arrival note, regardless of the finger arrival note is played with. And then it should be a closed parentheses there. So yeah, basically the idea is that thumb position is built on the octave. So in other words, whenever you have your thumb on a note, assuming it's not the top string, so let's say we have it on a D string, on the D, the third finger on the A string should be an octave apart. That's so you know how sometimes you're like, hang on, where should my thumb be? Should it be further back? Should it be higher up? Well, the sort of general rule is that it should be exactly an octave away from the third finger on the higher string. So you have it's kind of like the backbone of the position. And it's a good kind of check-in with if you're ever not sure if your thumb is too high or too low. And you can certainly also practice playing the thumb when you shift, so and check that the octave is there. So for example, when you play the E to C, second to the bottom line of this page, we're going to shift with our second finger. But first we need to have thumb up and down across two strings, then shift. On the way back down, I'm shifting with one. Thumb up, down across two strings. Shifting with one. But I could also say, hey, I just want to check my thumb there. And play the D and the A, sorry, the D and the D. It's hard to do that, and I don't think it's necessary unless you're like really wanting to put yourself in purgatory for a little bit. But maybe you do. So if you do, then just try and be relaxed as you do it. And then so that's to C, and then to D. Again, chest out. I'm sort of keep saying it because I keep noticing it in myself. Gosh, that would have been better. That would have felt better if I'd had my chest out. When you shift higher, it's really great to open up, right? So chest out. Slow. Slow is also nice because it gives you a chance to practice your ear training, right? So you're really giving yourself time to go, I'm anticipating the note, I'm trying to hear where it should go. There it is. There's like a deliberateness about it that comes when we have the fingers over the same string. I don't want to say tension because I don't like that word, but there's a stability. There's a solidity about the arm. It's not just floppy. So we want to be relaxed, but we also don't want to be you might think, oh, it looks good, but it doesn't feel good. Yeah, so if we want to be sure about it. And then exactly the same notes, but arriving on the third finger, thumb. so I'm doing it fast, but really that's not where the good work comes from. Just out. Great, okay, let's keep going. So, yes, Linda, hi.
When you say the thumb position is built on an octave, what you mean is, I think, that the thumb puts you in the position to hit the octave. It has to be in a place where you can hit the octave with your fingers. Is that right? It's not actually on the octave. It's on the harmonic generally or somewhere else in between. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not.
Well, let's say...
Like go from a B, like a C to a C.
Yeah.
Your thumb will go on the A to get to the C, correct?
Yes, yes. So it should be an octave between the thumb and the third finger, not the second finger. So if you were going from B to C, then the thumb will be there. But if you played the third finger, and you're not playing it, but if you did, it would be an octave.
I see what you're saying. Okay. So that's what I mean by built on an octave. Okay, I was.
Yeah. So if you're new to thumb position, another a great exercise is to just really always focus in on those harmonics, because you don't have to push down with the thumb, so it's more relaxed. Again, this is something that's really great for all of us. But just taking a scale, and I also try and make sure my fingers are rounded, because I don't like to round up there. Fingers across the playing string, and then I can finish with the octave. Thumb to 3. Chad, yes.
Just checking. So those bottom two, all the treble clef stuff, we're going up from the E on the D string, and then we're crossing over to the A string to play those.
No, actually, so with
To get
all
the
of
thumb
these
position?
exercises, same string. So they're all on the A string in this.
Okay.
technique. Yeah.
All on the
And
A string.
all on the A string, yeah. So on the technique exercises are all on the D string. The stretch zone A, which we've just done, is all on the A string. But of course you can play it on other strings. It's just that I randomly chose the D string and then the A string. But you could certainly it'd be great to
I randomly chose other strings, yes.
yeah, just randomly, yeah. Linda, did you have another question, or maybe I think she's busy? Okay, great. So then let's go on to the stretch zone B, which is when we start to talk about these arcs, which I think is perhaps something we're more familiar with. This idea of rainbows and scoops comes from a professor of cello at Eastman in Rochester, New York. Amazing music institution for pedagogy, and anyway, his name is Steve Doan, and he created this handbook called Cello Ergonomics. I highly recommend it if you haven't heard of it. It's really good. It's really short, but it's like so compact and full of great stuff and great little exercises. So he explains in it, this is also something that was kind of loosely out there before, but he just kind of codified it. And he talks about a rainbow shift. So the rainbow shift is basically the idea of this outward forearm rotation. It's very subtle. It's just that's it. So you know how we've talked, many of you, we've talked before about this idea of forearm rotation when you even just go from first finger to fourth finger. This idea of this very, very slight motion here. That's it. That's the rainbow motion. So it doesn't mean whee. I mean, you could be like, I'm going to just do a very expressive, right? But you don't need to, right? So start with less, and you can always, maybe you'll feel at a certain point, actually, I do want a little bit more freedom in my motion here, or maybe not. Maybe you can be more expressive when it's a little bit less kind of. Maybe it can be distracting. So that's the rainbow shift, the outward rotation, and the scoop is the opposite. So instead of going like this, we go like this. We just do that with our it's basically the idea of scoops have to happen really on a ascending shift, and it'll be, say, in the last line of page 17, you've got a scale going up, just an ascending scale, and it's 2, 4, and then when I go to 1, there's a very slight motion like this, rather than this, right? That would be rainbow. That's scoop. Rainbow. That would be scoop. Very, very small motions, and actually a lot of people don't even think so much about the scoops and just focus in on the rainbows, because I would think the scoops are incredibly subtle, but maybe slightly splitting hairs, but I don't know. I know that Janet might have a different feeling about that because she's an expert in the scoop. So yeah, so we'll have to get her to share some tips on that later as well. But let's have a look for now at the I think more common for the most part rainbow motion, this outward rotation, which Janet also does, which we all do, whether or not we knew it. So we're going to have a look at the rainbows exercise, and notice in this one that you've got a whole series of little grace notes when you start to shift. So from bar 3, there's like a little tiny C before the E, and then a tiny D before the B, right? Lots of grace notes. Those are actually an example of shifting on the old finger. So when we do rainbows, we're going to shift on the old finger, right? We're in that third bar, we're moving from B to E, and we're going to shift onto the C, which is going to allow us to just hit the E. So that in that third bar, we're going, and you can see this very slight motion, forearm rotation going on here. So even in the first bar, there's a very, very slight motion. These are all rainbows. I shift back on the 4. So there's no rainbow until I'm in position, and then the rainbow happens. So I move straight, then the rainbow. I move straight, then the rainbow. I move straight, then the rainbow. See how small it is? Straight, just like we were doing in the technique exercises. Except for when we get back, then we lift a finger and create that little tiny rainbow motion. Shift. Tiny rainbow motion. So I think this is a really subtle thing, and I welcome any questions if you're like, I don't quite see what we're talking about here, or if you want to have a go at showing me something that might be confusing you, and I'd be very happy to give feedback. Yes, Jonathan?
Just a quick question, because I've been thinking about these a lot lately, and I notice even to a subtle degree, I don't really feel them in upper positions, like 5th, 6th, thumb position. Is that, would you say they're still there, and just even more subtle, or?
Yes, but I think it does feel less pronounced. You're right, definitely. It's still there because really we're talking about these rainbow motions as being just going from a lower finger to a higher finger, or a higher finger to a lower finger. So we're still doing that up there, and we're still making this slight hand motion, but it's less obvious than back here. Back here, I think we feel it a bit more in the forearm, and you see it a bit more in the forearm, and then up here it feels just more localized. Yeah, great question. Okay, let's go on to the scoops, just to give an example of what these are. And again, you could do this with any scale. I've chosen one on the A string, but every time we shift from a higher finger to a lower finger, like in the first bar, when we go from D to E, that's an opportunity for a small inward rotation or a scoop. I'm not going. I could make it a little bit more outward rotation. very slight tip of the hand and forearm. Here. I don't know if you heard that. That's my dog. He gets very emotional when I play high. So yeah, so we always have a little kind of communion first thing in the day. I'll play. I'll sometimes play like with vibrato up there, and he'll get very, very emotional about it. So lead the shifts from the shoulder as you move higher up the fingerboard. So, and I think these scoops again are very, very subtle. So I think there's value to being aware of it, but it's a very, very subtle motion. Janet, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that? I feel like you're kind of an expert of the scoop, and I don't want to undersell it.
I'm trying to get over being such a scooper. I was thinking about the thumb in thumb position, and someone asked a question before, maybe it was Jonathan, and I think your thumb travels leads. Who was asking that? Does the thumb might lead more so if you're gonna do? Is that a scoop? If you do that kind of slide,
Yeah.
or would your thumb stay back? I don't know if that's scooping or rainbow. I'm not sure there. I think it has to do with old finger, new finger.
Yeah.
The combination of scoops and
Right.
rainbows and a combination, right? Are there four? Can you kind of mix and match?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think that your initial point about the fact that the thumb is going to be a little bit more feel like it's leading when you do a scoop makes a lot of sense. That it's, if you're doing a rainbow, the thumb is more kind of behind in the motion, and if you're doing a scoop, the thumb is
More
actually you have to
pushing,
mention it.
more like a pushing,
Yeah,
like kind of
yes,
more active.
yes,
maybe.
exactly. And there are definitely, endless varieties, of course, of these shifts, and this is kind of certainly the majority of what we're doing. I think it's great to make it foundational, but I really would love to get into some more artistic kind of decisions and questions too. I know that's also where it's kind of exciting, right, and what we all want to do. So on page 18, actually, in the repertoire connecting, I think that's where we can start to think about musical shifts. Like, well, okay, yes, we want to be clean when we shift. We want to be have economy of motion and do it in a comfortable, efficient way. But what else is there? So on page 19, you've got the score for Swan twice on page 19 and 20, and on page 19 at the bottom you can see the recommended exercise, and this is to kind of take all the things that we've looked at in the companion so far and kind of contemplate, okay, well, how do each of these shifts that I've highlighted in red, how might I describe them? What kind of shifting motion could be used here, might be best? And you can ask questions like, is the motion bigger or smaller? Does it feel like a direct line, or is it more of a rainbow or scoop motion? Do I incorporate the inchworm motion? So just kind of like looking at it more in terms of sort of just analysing the actual motions, mainly in terms of efficiency on this page. And then page 20 moves more into a sort of artistic exercise, which is, what type of musical shift would you like to hear here? And some considerations that I've suggested are audibility. So do you want the shift to be more heard or less heard, right? Do you want there to be a slide? So for example, in that first bar, do you want it to go and have minimal slide? Or do you want to have a bit more slide? Or somewhere in between? And then possible fingering, depending on the fingering that you choose, that's going to change the kind of shift that we have as well. For example, the next, just going on from where we got to the B to the E, like I've suggested playing fourth finger there, which actually allows us to immediately, because we can kind of stretch and extend and shift at the same time, it's going to make it a cleaner shift. So that's going to be quite a clean shift. But if I change the fingering, say I make it going to third finger instead of fourth finger, I'm probably going to have more of a shift. Maybe I decide that I don't want to have a shift, or I don't want to have a glissando. Maybe I decide I don't want to have a glissando on the first shift, but I do want one here. Or opposite, shift glissando on the first shift. Make a bit more. Dynamic shaping. Yes, Linda.
So if you're shifting on your old finger to the next position, sometimes there you can hear that finger going down to the note you're going to. You just did it there a couple of times, and I've done it many times. So that's fine, right? I mean, just it's incorporated as part of the phrasing of the music, like hear it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and I think these choices of old fingers and new fingers and whereabouts we're going to, what combination, to Janet's point, of old finger and new finger we want to use, where we want the slide to be. These are really liberating, like empowering questions to have, that we don't have to do it in one way. Same with the fingering. So the old finger slide, I always feel a bit guilty calling it old finger slide, because it almost feels like it's like a reject or something. Like, actually, I love old finger slides. They're like, best. But anyway, so the old finger slide. It kind of sounds a little bit, it sounds emotional, but also like there's something nostalgic about it. It feels like kind of a little old worldy, I think. So then
do the new finger slide there as a contrast.
So I'm going to slide on first finger. So I get more of a slide, actually.
More of a slide.
But I could lighten it. Again, it's a question of how much I want. So let's do the new finger slide with a big slide. That would be a huge slide. Right? And now let's do it with no slide. So I'm doing the new finger shift with no slide. And it sounds quite simple and pure and lovely as well. So it gives it quite a different emotional character.
Sophie, can you
Yes.
do a combination? So where you start out with the old finger, and just before you get to the B, you would insert the first finger?
So I'm just, normally I tend to go all the way to the C sharp and then lift, but I'm going to try and lift before the C sharp. Or that was kind of too quickly.
And then you add to the complication. Are you doing a little of the Casals?
Oh, probably.
Are you doing any of that?
Did I do that? Well, that's, good point. So, to bring out the B after the big, especially if you do a slide, right? It can sound too goopy. If you want it to sound beautiful with the slide, but you also don't want to become kind of amorphous, right? You don't want it to be like, right? So yeah, so you have the option of doing this Casals left hand pits, which is sliding on the old finger and then using the old finger to pluck the string. Yeah. Yeah, and that sounds quite old schooly, I think, too. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And Jonathan,
Quick question. When you talked about making the choice to make the slide more or less audible,
yeah.
are you controlling that variable through your bow speed and weight? So if you want less, do you just hide it through less bow?
Great question. Yes. When we shift, both hands need to lighten. But in terms of audibility, yes, it's all the bow. So the bow is very important. Yes. The expression that we choose to do with the left hand adds something different. But how we bring out the left hand depends on the audibility we apply with the bow. So how much weight or lightness there is, yeah. Especially if you want to be just very clean in the shift. Like if I did the new finger shift again, 4-3, and then shift on 1. It's all lightening with the bow. And also, I do the left hand clicks.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Okay, awesome. So, and then you've got some really beautiful renditions of the swan on page 22. There's 3 links there. Those are also linked in the on our homepage. So so when we meet for our 2 play sessions, we'll look at a couple of these exercises. I think it would be fun to make one of them around the swan, but if anybody has a particular request to look at any particular exercise or deviate slightly from something, then please feel free to shoot me an email ahead of those play sessions, and I'll definitely be happy to work that in too. So thank you for joining me, and have a great day. I look forward to seeing you next time.
See you. Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank
Good
you.
Thank you,
seeing
Sophie.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
You.
Thank you.